Let me start with a truth that most attorneys don't hear until they're in the middle of a lateral conversation and suddenly wish they'd heard it years earlier. Not all business is created equal. Not all client relationships are equally yours. And the composition of your practice, the mix of work you do, the types of clients you serve, the way your origination credit and your service work are distributed matters enormously when you decide you want to move. Some practices are highly transferable, some are not. And the difference is rarely about the quality of the attorney. It's about the architecture of how their practice was built. I'm Andrew Wilcox, legal recruiter since 2003. Today, I want to talk about something that is genuinely underappreciated in the lateral conversation: building intentionally, proactively, a practice that is healthier, more transferable, and more valuable in the market, not just for the purpose of a future move, but because the characteristics that make a practice transferable are also the characteristics that make it more sustainable, more rewarding, and frankly, more fun to have. First, let's define what a transferable practice looks like. A transferable practice is one where the core relationships belong to you, where the origination credit reflects your genuine contribution, where the client base is diverse enough that no single relationship creates an existential dependency, and where the type of work you do is sophisticated enough to command premium rates and attract premium clients. Contrast that with the non transferable version, a practice where the book is heavily concentrated in one or two institutional clients that the firm owns, where most of the work flows through you as a service partner rather than as a relationship partner, where origination credit sits with a senior partner who controls the client access, and where the work itself, however well you do it, is commodity work that can be delivered by any number of equally qualified attorneys. Both of those attorneys may be billing significant hours. One has a practice, the other has a job. The diversification question. Portfolio theory applies to legal practices the same way it applies to investment portfolios. Concentration creates risk. An attorney whose book is 70% one client, even a very large, very stable, very happy client, has a practice that is genuinely fragile in ways they may not feel day to day. If that client is acquired, if the general counsel leaves and is replaced by someone who has a relationship with another firm, if the work shifts in a direction your firm can't serve, if a conflict arises that nobody anticipated, your practice has a serious problem. The healthiest practices I've seen, the ones that survive transitions, that sustain themselves across decades, that give attorneys genuine career security, are diversified. Multiple clients in the range of meaningful but not overwhelming contribution. Multiple industries or client types that don't all cycle together. Work that comes from multiple origination sources rather than a single powerful colleague's referral stream. If your practice is concentrated, start intentionally working on diversification now. Not when you're considering a move, now. Because the relationships that will diversify your practice take years to develop, and the time to start is always before you need them. The origination question. This is the one that attorneys in service roles need to hear most directly. If the majority of your work flows from another partner's relationship, if you're excellent at what you do, you're billing significant hours, you're handling complex matters, but the origination credit sits with someone else, you need to be honest with yourself about what that means for your mobility. The legal market rewards originators. It compensates them disproportionately. And when you go into a lateral conversation, what firms are primarily asking about is your ability to bring business, not just your ability to handle it once it arrives. Sophisticated work with you as a service attorney is valuable, but it's significantly less valuable in a portability discussion than work you originated yourself. If you're in a service role, the question is, what is your path to developing origination? Not in 5 years in the abstract. Concretely, which client relationships are you positioned to develop? Which contacts do you have that are pre clients, relationships that could become originations with intentional cultivation? What is the plan and what's the timeline? The attorneys who transition from service roles to origination roles most successfully are the ones who start that transition before they need it, while they're still in a stable infrastructure of their current firm. Now, the sophistication question. There's a real difference in market value between attorneys who handle sophisticated, complex, high stakes work and attorneys who handle commodity work at volume. The market knows this and it prices it accordingly. If your practice has drifted toward volume over complexity, if you're handling a lot of work, but the individual matters are not particularly differentiated, that is worth examining. Not as a criticism of the work, but as a strategic question. What would it take to shift the composition of your practice toward more complex, more differentiated, higher margin work? What clients have that work? What relationships do you need to develop? And what capabilities do you need to deepen? The attorneys who are the most valuable in the lateral market are not necessarily the ones with the largest books. They're the ones with the most defensible books. Practices built on relationships that are genuinely theirs, on work that requires their specific expertise, on clients whose loyalty is personal rather than institutional. And making it practical. If you're thinking about a move in the next 2 to 3 years, start now. Identifying the 2 or 3 relationships in your current book that have the most developmental potential. The clients who are growing, who have expanding legal needs, who have decision makers you have genuine personal access to. Invest intentionally in those relationships. Deepen the personal connection. Expand the scope of the work. Make sure those clients know you, trust you, and think of you first. At the same time, identify 2 or 3 relationships outside your current client base that could become client relationships with cultivation. Former clients, referral sources, industry contacts, warm relationships that haven't become business relationships. Move those forward. Every year of intentional practice building makes your next move, if and when you choose to make it, more powerful. A practice built with intention is worth significantly more than the one that is simply accumulated. I'm Andrew Wilcox. This is the Lateral Brief. If you'd like to have a confidential discussion about your practice or career goals, please email me at andrew@wilcox-legal.com. As always, grateful, Andrew Wilcox.